Okay, hello everyone, and welcome. Today we have Stacey Aires visiting us and going to be sharing her experiences with us in terms of 24-hour postural care, and we'll see where the discussion leads us. I want to talk a little bit about funding, about the Road Accident Fund, Medico-Legal, and all sorts of things. So Stacey, if you can give us a little bit about your background, where you hail from, then we can take it from there.
Sure. So my first claim to fame is I'm a mum of four.
Oh, great. Yeah.
And I've been working as a physiotherapist for 19 years and almost exclusively in the field of neurological rehabilitation. I'm an NDT physio.
Yeah.
Been in the medico-legal field for 10 years and in the past 2 years exclusively medico-legal. My knowledge comes from bridging two worlds, the medical and the legal.
Yeah.
So although I'm the medical expert, because I have an interest in the legal, I'm in constant communication with the lawyers and about the law and what's happening.
Yeah.
Because that's my interest. What's interesting is, although my mandate is to work with a client solely for the purpose of the medico-legal assessment and report,
Yes.
because I'm a rehabilitation physiotherapist, when the case has been settled, very often the attorneys refer the clients to me so that I can assist with referral.
Right.
So I really appreciate the opportunity to see what happens afterwards.
Right. In my experience with private medical aid here, as well as medical legal payouts and purchases of equipment, what happens is I will provide this piece of equipment, that piece of equipment, that piece of equipment, hand it over, and then I lose contact. And it worries me that there's no one appointed formally and legally and be the center point for everyone in this team. Once somebody has been awarded a case and won a case, what is the most effective way of managing that person to get the best out of all of that money? Or what's the most effective way of managing that case going forward?
Sure. So for me, I really think the appointment of a case manager.
First.
Number one.
Yeah.
That is number one. And a team approach.
Yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned the team, and we could list probably at least 10 people that should be in a coordinated team.
The purpose of this, and everybody, be it the medical expert, the trustee, the attorney, the advocate, should always be focused that this is actually about the client.
Yeah.
So it's not just then about sending them from here to there and everywhere, but
Yeah.
to work with a team that really considers not only the individual, their context, their family, their routine, their day, where they come from, and what they want out of life.
Yeah.
So really a team that is rehabilitation focused, individually focused, and passionate about what they do.
Absolutely. So what comes to mind is the role of a professional case manager.
So in terms of this, as we know, first of all, it's not mandatory to have a case manager. Usually in these cases, funds are protected. But you've got to remember that trustee is relying on the honesty of the service provider.
Right.
So they will get the invoice and they are trusting that what that service provider says on the invoice is true.
Yeah.
So it's only as good and as reliable and as honest as that service provider. All the professionals who write reports will suggest it.
Mm-hmm.
And there usually is an allocation for it. But there's not necessarily the follow through. And my wish would be that in the order that the judge hands down, it would be a binding court order.
Absolutely.
That there has to be a case manager.
It's actually mind-boggling with the medical aids.
It should be mandatory because actually,
mandatory.
If they wanted to get more bang for their buck as a medical aid or even the Road Accident Fund, it would be a clever decision to have a case manager.
Yeah.
And I think that really there would be a lot more successful follow-through. There would be more assurance that that money is actually used as effectively as possible and actually for what it's meant for.
Has the law changed in the last few years with regards to what people can and can't do with the trust fund money once it's been awarded? Because we're seeing that it can lead to some very
untoward, dishonest, corrupt
behavior.
I do believe that there is talk of, in terms of the personal injury industry, of bringing in an undertaking system.
Okay.
As opposed to a lump sum, so an award, and then this is to be used towards. So what the undertaking system is very similar to the road accident fund.
Okay.
And where it's useful is you can only access that undertaking for what's in that undertaking.
Yeah.
So you can't go buy a car if the undertaking is for a wheelchair.
Yes.
So that's very useful. What's also useful about the undertaking system is if a child dies, and this does happen, and it's very difficult to predict,
I know.
is that money is retained within the system.
I hope that comes right. In the last 2 weeks, we've heard of 2 suspicious deaths, just to put it out there, and that's, I'm very glad that at least it's being discussed, that there's a change.
Very important, because first of all, I'm not sure if you know, but in terms of litigation against the Department of Health, or the MEC of Health,
right,
those funds that are paid for these suits come from the health budget.
Yes. Yeah.
And as we know, we don't have a very healthy health budget.
Yeah.
So they have to look at ways to decrease, the demand on this health budget. But also, I do believe, in my personal opinion, that it's fairer, because I think that it is a more reliable way of ensuring that money goes really towards where it's supposed to go. And also, we don't have a crystal ball, so we can't predict. So what happens in a case, we may say a child has a life expectancy of 26 years, and that's up to the life expectancy expert. Child lived 40 years. They're not going to have enough in their claim. Whereas a child who we've predicted 40 years dies at age 25, what happens to that money? That gets reabsorbed into the system. And I think that is a fairer way, because in that way, first of all, the people that need it get what they need, but it's restricted to what is recommended and it's what is put down in the undertaking.
One of the areas that I have tried and maybe could do more in is the recycling of equipment. Do you see that there's a big need for it? I mean, lots of money gets spent on a wheelchair or on a fancy standing frame. The child outgrows it in 1 year. Where does it go?
I definitely think so. I think there should be a second-hand market for equipment. And why not? I mean, you look at something like a standing frame, which really has a long life, right? And more often than not, why a child needs a new standing frame is not because that standing frame is broken. It's because they've outgrown it. So I really think that a second-hand market could bring down the cost tremendously. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, why do we have a second-hand car market?
And I also think with medical aid, perhaps what they should do is retain ownership of the equipment. It's almost like a purchase hire or a leasing arrangement with suppliers, so that they have first choice of what happens with that equipment and how it's recycled, and whether it's recycled correctly. Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be done in that area. And I really think it is something to think about. But even if the medical aids are not involved, the big point is that, you could sell a piece of equipment as secondhand, invoice it, and a trustee may approve it anyway if it's suitable.
Well, we do that. So as long as I've done a formal assessment, that secondhand piece of equipment can be sold to us as Sitwell and then reissued through the medical aid invoice, as long as it's correct to the client. So I do that.
Absolutely.
So that does help a lot of people, but it's either donated or it's not maintained, and I just think it's a waste.
It's an absolute waste. So I think in order to encourage people to utilize something like this, they'd have to be educated. I think the key to all of this is really education. It's education and training, and getting the word out there and getting people to know that this is available. I mean, you are in the perfect position to do something about it, so why don't you get the ball rolling?
Well, thank you. You're absolutely right, and I have had an idea about a non-profit organisation called Adam.Bottomley, where second-hand equipment can be collected and redistributed, serviced and prescribed correctly.
Who would fund it?
Well, we hope that we can get corporate social responsibility money in for this. It's going to require what we're doing here, raising awareness, podcasts, getting information out there and educating the market, because People don't know what it's like to have disability.
Absolutely.
I don't know how many people in rural areas are struggling with this, and they also don't know what a drain it has on a community to have extra people come in to care for that person who's not economically active.
I mean, here you are connecting with how many people, well, hopefully hundreds or thousands of people watching the video. So maybe it's a call to say, if you've got any secondhand equipment or whatever it is, maybe they can give your office address and drop it off. And
Absolutely.
There's no time like the present to actually start.
That's magic. Okay, so if you've got any equipment that you want to donate to a worthy cause, it will be prescribed correctly. It will be given to somebody in need. And you can drop it off at Sitwell Technologies, which is 41 11th Avenue in Highlands North, Johannesburg, or you can call 011 440 8226. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool.